Alright guys, today let's talk about a couple of ways that you can wirelessly monitor when filming on your Sony camera. Now, I know Sony has their own option to do this. There is an app that they have called Memories Plus or Memories or something weird like that. That is for iPhone, Android, all that fun stuff. But I'm not going to even consider that an option today because that app is absolute garbage. If you've used it before, if you have a Sony mirrorless camera, then I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. That app is just complete crap. Sony, come on, develop a better app. But in the meantime, while we wait for Sony to completely revamp that app, which I don't even think they're actually doing, let's talk about a couple other ways that you can go about doing this. So with that, the first option is a bit more of a pro level option, and that is by using something like a wireless transmitter. Now, a good option that is budget friendly but still kind of in the pro level range is the HOLLYLAND Mars 400S Pro. It is a wireless transmitter that transmits 1080p video up to 400 feet away with low latency or signal delay. And the second option is a much cheaper option, and that is by using an app on your smartphone or tablet. The app in question is called Monitor Plus and it's available on iOS and Android. And while there is a free option, for about $25 to $30, you can unlock the full set of pro level features that just makes that thing absolutely amazing. I just want to give a special shout out to Chris Brockhurst for actually introducing the idea of using this app, the Monitor Plus app, to me. I had been searching high and low for a good monitoring app like this, and I found absolute garbage out there. It was really hard to find something good. I really didn't find anything that came close to this app here, so thank you, Chris, for pointing that out to me. Really appreciate it. So the biggest question here today is, which of these two is the best option or the best route to go? Will the app that costs virtually nothing be good enough, or do you have to fork over some extra cash to get the actual pro level option? Why don't we break it all down? Now, the first thing I want to talk about is how to connect each of these two options to your camera when filming. Let's start off with the Monitor Plus app. Now, I'm going to walk you through these steps on my FX3, but it should be similar on the A7SIII or any other Sony camera for that matter. So first, we're going to open up the menu on your camera and find the menu tab for network. Then, we'll go to transfer/remote and control with smartphone. Next, we're going to make sure control with smartphone is set to on and then go on over to connection. You should now see the screen with a QR code on it. Now it's ready for the app to connect to it. So now we'll head on over to the Monitor Plus app and tap connect via QR code. Then aim the device's camera at the QR code so we can scan it, and you should see this pop up asking to join the network, which is from your camera. Your camera is essentially sending out a Wi-Fi signal for your smartphone or tablet to connect to. Hit join and you should see this little message saying connecting. Then it should change to tap to connect. Tap it if you don't already see your camera listed, or if you do see it listed, tap on enter where your camera shows up on the list. Now you should be connected. So as you can see, once you are connected, you've got the full proper interface that shows up on your screen. So if you're using something like an iPad, which I love to use because it's a lot bigger than just a smartphone, you get the full view of everything you possibly need. But we will go into that further in the next section. So now let's talk about how to connect the HOLLYLAND Mars 400S Pro. First, turn on the wireless transmitter and plug in an HDMI cord to the HDMI port on the back. Next, plug in the other end of the HDMI cord to your camera. Then, we're going to grab the wireless receiver and turn it on. Next, we'll plug in the HDMI cord into the port on the back and plug the other end of the HDMI cord into the HDMI in port on your field monitor and turn that on as well. Then, you want to make sure both the transmitter and the receiver are set to the same channel. Once they are, you should automatically see the video feed show up on the field monitor. If you're not seeing any video, it might be because your camera is outputting its video feed in 4K resolution, but the transmitters only transmit 1080p video. So you'll have to go into your camera settings and make sure it's only outputting 1080p to an external source. This will not affect your actual recording in 4K, only what is being output to the monitor. So as you can see, this is actually quite a simple setup as well. Now, why don't we talk about the features that each option has. First, jumping on over to the Monitor Plus app, you'll notice that this app covers absolutely everything. It is the most fleshed out app I've seen that allows you to monitor video like this. So as you can see in the top left hand corner, you've got the frames per second that your camera is set to, the shutter speed, the ISO, the white balance. It shows you what focus mode you're in, like auto or manual. It shows what mode your camera is set to, like movie mode or if you're in photo mode, as well as shows the focus area and a battery indicator that lets you know how much battery is left on your camera. So it is pulling all of this directly from your camera, which is absolutely fantastic. So a lot of the times, if I'm not wirelessly monitoring, I'd have to go around to the back of the camera and check all that out. Or if I'm using an on-camera field monitor, those are actually quite small, so when you're hand holding the rig, that's perfectly fine, but that's not what we're talking about here today. We're talking about when you're doing a setup like filming a YouTube video, filming an interview for a client, or if you're even shooting something like a short film and you're monitoring from afar. You're not necessarily going to be right beside the camera, and you're not going to want to have to follow around trying to see the back of a small monitor what all the settings are. So if you're wirelessly monitoring, you're going to want to see all this information. So a lot of this wasn't available on other options, especially free options for apps that let you connect to your camera just like this. And then on top of all that, there's a whole other set of features that most field monitors have built into them. So you've got waveforms, you've got zebras, you can check false colors, you can add different aspect ratio framing options so you can see what areas would be cut off if you're filming in a different aspect ratio. You can turn on focus peaking. You can also import LUTs into the app so that you can see what your footage would look like once you have it color graded. It basically has every single feature that most of your modern field monitors or program monitors would have. So this thing is absolutely fantastic. So if you consider the fact that this only costs 25 or 30 bucks to unlock all of those features, it's just a no-brainer to check out an option like this. Now, I know you might say, hold on a second, this isn't that cheap because you have to have another device as well. But I can almost guarantee you that most of you have a smartphone, and if you do have an iPad or a tablet as well, then you're just putting that to use, which you've already invested in and bought for other reasons. So you're just going to be using existing products that you have lying around to use for this instead of having to fork over hundreds, if not thousands of dollars for a proper monitoring system. And now let's jump over to the feature set of the HOLLYLAND Mars 400S Pro. So this doesn't have a ton of features in terms of what we just talked about here that the Monitor Plus app has because it's not a monitor. It is a wireless transmitter and receiver. So in terms of the filmmaking feature set, it's limited to what the monitor that is plugged into has. So if you're using a very cheap budget monitor and it doesn't have a lot of features, doesn't have focus peaking, doesn't have LUT support, then going this route won't have those options as well. It'll just be as straightforward and simple as whatever your monitor has. So if you're plugging it into a much more expensive monitor that has a ton of features and has pretty much everything we just talked about that the Monitor Plus app has, then obviously all that will work as well. So just keep that in mind that if you're trying to go the super budget route, you might actually get more features if you're using it with a tablet or an iPad versus using it with a cheap budget field monitor. And in terms of features that the actual devices themselves have, the Mars 400S Pro can connect to your camera via HDMI or SDI port, supports a 1080p signal, and can transmit up to 400 feet away in an open space. It has a low latency of 80 milliseconds and supports signal transmission up to 4 smartphones and tablets at a time. It can be powered by various L series batteries, 5 to 12 volt Type-C, and 6 to 16 volt DC power options. The Mars 400S Pro also has multiple fan modes to keep it cool and has an accompanying app so you can monitor on your smartphone. They also have a cold shoe mount attached to the base of them so you can easily attach them to your camera or another type of stand. And the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is the latency of both options. So that could be the delay in the video signal that's transmitted from your camera to your monitoring option. This could be a huge issue if you were trying to do something like pull focus. So you would want to have an option that has little to absolutely no latency if you possibly could, because if you're trying to follow focus, it has to be an instant reaction. It has to be exactly the same timing as what's happening in the real world while you're filming. If it is off by a second, you're going to notice that and you're going to miss your focus for every single shot. So these are things to keep in mind when choosing which option, which route to go for, no matter what you're doing for wireless monitoring. So with the Monitor Plus app, the latency is actually quite low, but there is still a bit of a delay. So as you can see here, you'll notice that as I'm moving, it's not actually 100% synced up. It is quite decent, it's really not bad at all, and sometimes I've actually noticed it is a little bit less latency than when using the HOLLYLAND transmitters, but I'll go more into that soon. So all in all, with this app option, there is a quite low latency, but I'm still not quite sure you could fully use this for focus pulling. This is a great option for just monitoring to check focus, to check framing, to check exposure, to check anything else you might need to see that you're trying to monitor when you're filmmaking or filming, but I'm still not quite convinced that it's good enough or low enough latency to be truly focus pulling. I've only tried it out a couple of times, and quite honestly, it was hard to really determine if it's something I would be able to use more full time like that. So, I would say if your main focus here is to be doing focus pulling with a wireless transmission method, I'd probably look elsewhere. And when it comes to the HOLLYLAND Mars 400S Pro, HOLLYLAND actually boasts that they have virtually no latency. But in true tests, in real world tests, I would beg to differ. As you can see here, there's actually quite a delay in the motion, and when compared side by side to the Monitor Plus app, you'll actually notice that there's less of a delay on the app compared to the HOLLYLAND transmitters. So, having said all of that, I think neither of these options are actually fantastic if you do want to be focus pulling. If you really want to use this as your all-encompassing one-stop shop for filmmaking and wireless monitoring, you're probably going to be wanting to be going to something that's more in the pro level and pro budget or pro priced products from HOLLYLAND or other companies as well, because they do offer products that offer pretty much no latency, but you're going to be spending a lot more money for something like that. So, if you won't be using any of these two options for focus pulling, then what are the use cases for each one, and when would you want to use one over the other? I would say for small setups, like if you're filming a YouTube video, if you're filming an interview in one stationary spot, or doing any other kind of small, low budget setups that don't require a lot of moving around and a lot of distance between the camera and where you're going to be monitoring, then I think the app is probably the best way to go. It's the cheapest option, and it does a fantastic job. And like I mentioned, it has all those different monitoring options. It's got a million features. It's got everything you could possibly want for monitoring for filmmaking. So that is probably going to be the best option for scenarios like that. Now, that's not to say that you can't use the HOLLYLAND transmitters for something like that as well. It'll also be fantastic for that. But if you are on a budget and you're looking to save money, you don't need to fork over a few $100 to get something like an actual wireless transmitter. The app is more than capable enough to get by for what your specific needs would be. And on the flip side, I'd probably pick the HOLLYLAND transmitters for something more of a short film or a setup where there is a bigger set, where you might have a small crew in a different room, a different part of the house, or a location that you're at that you're gonna be monitoring from. You'll probably get much farther distances for the transmission on something like the wireless transmitters versus the app, because the app does use just Wi-Fi. So I'm not really sure how far that could go before it really disrupts the signal and really messes things up, or just kind of disconnects altogether. So with your wireless transmitter, you can go quite far. So if you are going to be moving around a lot, if you're on location, if you're on the go, that is when something like an actual wireless transmitter like the Mars 400S Pro would come in more handy versus the app like this. But if you are on location and you do want to use something like the Monitor Plus app with your iPad, you can actually rig up your iPad to make it a little more robust, a little more rugged, so that you can have it on location and wirelessly monitor that way as well by using something like SmallRig's cage for the iPad. You can attach a couple side handles to this cage, pop the iPad in, lock it in place, and it becomes this much more rugged monitor to be monitoring when you're on location or on set. So I will talk more about that in another video coming up soon, so stay tuned for that if you're interested in going that route as well. Alrighty, so I hope you learned a lot here today. I hope you found this video useful. I know wireless monitoring is something a lot of people want to get more into, and there are a million options out there. It's hard to kind of figure out what to do, what the best route for it is. So hopefully this really helped you kind of think about this a little bit differently and see that there are other options, and you don't have to spend an arm and a leg if you want to wirelessly monitor. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. And also while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe and also hit that bell notification icon to get notified every single time I drop new videos like this one. Trust me, there's lots more coming your way, so you're not gonna wanna miss it. As always, I'm Alex Perry. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.